Hey, what's going on, guys? It is the return, I guess. And we are spectating an OST game. So it should be pretty interesting. This is it OST or ST? I don't really recall what it is. Ever is. Ugh, I stink. Point being, it's the one with playoffs, and this one sees Mounts, who has been in this position quite a few times, and Empo, who has been, on the grind for a hot minute. He's been, in ladder tour for like 3 rounds now. He ended up winning some iteration of it. I believe the last ladder tour he won. And he's additionally been in all sorts of other fairly highfalutin positions with tours of this nature. So he has been excelling as of late. And Mounts has always been, this poster child of French success, though as a whole, it hasn't really developed into anything huge. So hopefully he'll be able to escape his tendency for round one exits in this particular set. We're seeing an interesting team from him, very, French creative, I guess we could put it, insofar as running what I would distinguish as the most unique being Slow King Rain, which I've seen in a couple iterations. I know that there's one stall team that runs both Slow King and Polytoad alongside, the usual Tentacruel, Landorus, Ferrothorn nonsense. And his placement isn't inherently bad, of course, and on a team like this, I mean, the whole bulky offense, Keldeo switch, it maintains offensive presence and can sort of play a long-term role in a game thanks to Regenerator. It's just kind of unique to see because it's usually more of a facet of, some weatherless bounce in offenses, sand, etc., not so much rain, where having that, bulky water role is even in ways redundant for a lot of teams. So, stepping away from that, Tracheon's also rather interesting, and I have been doing very little to assess the actual gameplay, but the fact that he brought it in here would suggest that it is banded, which would make enough sense, and judging from that damage, it absolutely is. Obviously, there is a chance that it was, some other set where the value of punching through a Rotom, especially here, when that is probably a Shuka Jirachi, and although, oh wow, very specially defensive. Okay, so I was, the way that he made that initial Garchomp play would have suggested that it was Shuka, and he was just going for that, but he actually was getting aggressive a little bit there, which isn't bad at all, especially considering the possibility of this being Dragon Gym Garchomp, which has been a lot more popular as of late, just because the value of immediately pressing that Landorus is always sort of, on the forefront of people's minds when looking to teams like this with the, oh, wow. Alright, cool. Good scout from, Mouse using a fairly expendable member. Obviously, Slowking can kind of do, loose pivots into shit, but especially if his team's going to be a fairly bulky Jirachi, something that can, stomach the Latios DMs. There's not really a high need for it to be, sitting around, the 80s, 90s. But, yeah, Draco is interesting for sure. You don't usually see that on a substitute variant, though obviously it plays sort of up to that angle of removing a Landorus because it's expected to be at least a little bit, solid versus it. Because those substitute variants, they won't be available, they won't have the tools available to remove it outright. So that might lead me to believe a lot of things, particularly that this could be a Scarf Terrakion looking at this team. I mean, he hasn't really shown a whole lot from this Jirachi, but shit, I mean, goodness, how archaic does Choice Scarf Jirachi feel nowadays, I just, at a glance would hesitate to assume for as much. But who is to say at the end of the day? Nonetheless, I think that Mouse is playing this really well in conserving the HP of Pokemon like Landorus, who typically I see from a lot of lesser experienced BW players would sort of throw it in, expecting some value of it. And there we go, it is a Scarf freaking Tracheon. And Empo makes a somewhat aggressive play, honestly fairly safe, knowing that the Tracheon looked to be choiced and was presumed locked. And another nice double from from Mounts. Pardon me. There's a lot of those kind of one-syllable M names out there, but does well to sneak in Tracheon once more on free turn. Both of these players are getting a lot of value out of these Pokemon, which is really impressive. But I think this is... This is going to be tough for Empo to pull through, because I think that his only win condition at this stage in the game, unless this Jirachi is one of those really ridiculous... but that is a nice double if he can get this pursuit off. And again, they're playing really fast, so it's a little tougher, because Empo is traditionally a pretty aggressive player. Makes sense. I was going to say that it would be tough for... Empo to facilitate a win at this stage, unless this Jirachi is one of those really ridiculous, sub 3 attack variants, the Iron Head, Thunder, Icy Wind, and has managed to cheese a bit, because he's looking to try to end game with Tracheon, and he can't do so with Stone Edge or CC under these conditions, because Tracheon is bulky enough to stomach it fairly handily. Jirachi, of course, as well, and Close Combat can't be committed to with the Slowking still healthy. So what I thought he was going to try for there, or what he did try for there, was a Pursuit Trap to eliminate one of those Pokemon that was preventing him from trying to just make a run of Close Combats. But he got the play wrong, unfortunately. Couldn't Pursuit, or didn't have Pursuit, and he was bluffing one way or the other, and... it results in this Slowking living, getting another free one with Tracheon, which fucking cleaned up here. I believe it got like 3 kills or something, which is pretty nutty, because, I mean, as much as Empo doesn't technically have a counter for the Pokemon, he does manage to keep a lot of offensive pressure with the team he's got. There was a lot of having to, sneak it in on doubles and whatnot, and I think that he did a very good job for that, and he should be acknowledged for as much. But this is what I was saying with the Jirachi. I think that if this is in fact that sub Thunder set that has been circulating for quite some time now, but I mean it's still ever popular. And there we go. There's the sub. Mount's conscious of this, recognizing that he would need to go for that. But what is an issue here is if he locks Close Combat, well, rather even when he locks Close Combat, due to the Sandstorm damage, he won't be dying to Thunder, which I think is Empo's out here. He'll have to Thunder into the Close Combat, get the para, and then fish for a full para to try to get some traction here. Also, I don't recall offhand if Jirachi runs the bulk to avoid having itself... Oh, it's... Okay, so it's just a more... doesn't even matter, because it's just the regular all physical set. I was going for the other one just on the basis that being able to immediately put that pressure on something like a Landorus or a Garchomp, of which this team is kind of limited in its options of dealing with. Like, its ground immunes are barely answers to those Pokemon. I mean, they deter the Earthquake Lock, but they don't answer. Rotom Spadef doesn't take U-turns well. Latios obviously takes like 60 from the U-turn, so it has to be kind of fucking around with shit. But yeah, he just has to try to sub here, and obviously not have the sub and get the full pair, followed by another full pair to have a shot. And I think that if Mounts wants to be totally conscious of that, I think he hards Lando here, because yeah, he doesn't... No, what? Alright. Oh. Huh? Yeah, I don't like that. I don't feel like that was, I don't think that was the shot. Um, I feel like it won't come into play, honestly, because Jirachi... Hmm. Yeah, I guess he's still going to end up having to fish for some full pairs here. But his odds are decent because mounts... I mean, unless this Jirachi is completely terrible, it'll just stomach this hit, kill it, have the capacity to beat the Terrakion and keep Jirachi from, subbing for 100% free. Oh, but he is going to... Okay. You know what? I think I might be vastly underrating or overrating Terrakion's power. Yeah, okay, I was. Whoopsie daisy. But... Alright, that's the first game. Interesting stuff. I think that Mounts played that really exceptionally well, which is nice because I've been one of those people that have been too quick to say, I mean, he's solid, but every time he steps up to bat, be it in, SPL or playoffs like this, I feel like he tends to underperform. And that was a really strong showing from him, so hopefully that carries over. And of course, Empo is always solid. He's been on a roll as of late, so maybe we'll see some other nice games following this up. We'll see. Okay, we've got our Sun Moon game. Got really funky teams from both players to an extent. Obviously, Mounts coming in with something that is historically, pretty standard. You see this kind of assembly of Pokemon a whole lot of times, but it feels like it meshes a really interesting combination of like that steadily wear away at the steals type bulky offense you see with like the Cleft, Torn, Zam kind of thing with this more like a semi-stall kind of approach. It's really unique. You've seen stuff like this before with, kind of spike pairings, things like that. So I would like to see what kind of approach is found in this, what really grants it utility over something a little more conventional, your usual, like, Pharaoh some from him. Whereas Empo also has something that I would consider to be in that same vein, where he's got what I can only deem as, like, a hyper offense from, like, the first 3, arguably 4 Mons, and then it's like stuffed somewhat by a Gastro. I mean, I can only imagine that, especially with teams like with Kartana, that is just a real frustration to build with, in my experiences, just for how little defensive utility is brought with it, in spite of this really good defensive typing. Like, it's a grass steel that serves as neither dragon resist, a psychic resist, an electric resist. It can do just none of those things. And so to an extent, I can understand how much of a burden, rather, no idea what that was, a Pokemon like Tapu Koko is, but to the extent of just like slapping a Gastro on a team like this feels very just clunky to me personally. Nonetheless, looking pretty interesting, and we see a Torn coming in on the Chansey, or Torn coming in on the opposing Torn out of Chansey for fear of knockoff, and the fact that it also did not show Rocky Helmet damage is leading us to believe it is the Z Fly set, popularized, like later half of SPL last, and I'm curious to see why Landorus is the switch. Obviously, well, I suppose this would be a pretty natural Z-move user from the team. It could very well be Continental Crush, which has definitely been seeing a slight resurgence because it kind of fell off entirely when people realized Defog was a thing. They were like, whoa, dude, let's put Defog on it, which has led to the abomination that is Scarf Defog Landorus, but, whatever. If that's what people like, that's what people like. I'm not going to, touch that shit. But he does run, so he's acknowledging, the risk of it, and brings in Gliscor, which has developed, once again, a pretty unique niche in these kind of teams. Commonly as a Heatran switch of sorts to them, given that it can outspeed and be bulky enough not to necessarily not be 2-hit KO'd by Magma Storm, but to be able to roost into the subsequent one, meaning that only sets like, Z-Fire and Grass Tran can effectively circumvent it. But that doesn't seem to be the case here, because again, we are expecting the Defog to be on Tauren, and of course Ice Fang also ensures that there's a much lower likelihood of that set, so we're probably going to get a freaking Swords Dance variant, which also good. I mean, obviously, Gliscor has been a pretty formidable conservative booster, good for pushing through just a ridiculous amount of Pokemon. So whether or not it would be able to beat this team has yet to be seen, but I think it's certainly possible. Ooh, baby! That is nifty. Alright, so I was just about to start calling into question a set like that within the context of this team, but yeah, once Heatran revealed Stealth Rock, you have to always question what a Chansey will be doing on a bulky offense like this, and the fact that he was able to deviate from that, standard formula and acknowledge as much with that is really interesting, and probably a pretty smart tech, all things considered. I don't see nearly as many Z Kartana as I do Scarf nowadays, so it makes sense that having that Pokemon to be able to, not wonderfully, but at least loosely, slap it around for a team like this who, having Heatran as the only resist for anything is just fucking atrocious, because Heatran, just every single gen is getting stretched to its absolute limits in terms of what it can do defensively for a team. And I like that. I'm a fan. I am a fan. Approved by me, as if you need it. And now he's kind of struggling to find a way to make that push through Charles 2600 here. And he's going to... Okay. Interesting play. Oh, for Corey. Got it. Yeah, sorry. They're probably... That's tacked on through the other French player, Corey 2600, and I guess Bastion is, of course, for Ajama, so it's just a bunch of Frenchies. Gotcha. Did not consider it. Okay, so it's interesting that he's putting so much thought into this play, because generally speaking, Gliscor is pretty freaking safe. Like, 95% of Gliscor are both faster than any spec zone. 241 is not that much of an investment, and okay, so that was what was being thought about. Empo was trying to figure that one out, but okay. Going to make a nice double there, looking to get back in the game and punish his lack of water resist, as is tradition with France. Which, I know Ojama will knock off in something like freaking DPP, ADV, whatever, and that's kind of fair there. I feel like that's valid, because you can have your Jirachi, your Blissey, what have you, answering that, but in a tier like this, Jesus, this can be absolutely brutal. And I know that Clef is like sort of an answer, but depending on how Empo chooses to manage his Mega Evolution, I feel like it can just tear through. But the fact that he switched out means that he probably doesn't have a way to navigate. I don't know what exactly. Potential Thunder Wave maybe, but I feel like having Gyarados at 88% versus the Gliscor is the path to victory at this point. Yeah, he Dragon Dances once, Dragon Dances again on the Clef as he takes Moonblast, then goes for the 2-hit KO, and unless he has like Thunder Wave on it, that's just the game there. So I'm not sure exactly what was needed to be achieved there, but I guess he didn't see his win there. I'm sure he knows something more than me, but it felt like that was where he was going to go for it, if ever, because yeah, now he gets Stealth Rock up, and he is now officially in 2-hit KO range from Moonblast, unless he's like some really unique, wonky spread. In which case, all the weirder. Oh, man. Oh, beg pardon. Maybe get some sleep. Assault Vest Magnezone, oh. That's, again, goofy. All the more reason to me for this to not have a Gastrodon on it. Like, he's like, oh, wow, I'm weak to Tapu Koko. But Assault Vest Magnezone, that helps out a lot with it. But I also want to block Volt Switch and at the same time not be worried. Like, it feels like an overcorrection. You know what I'm saying? It's weird to me, but I mean, you know, Greninja too, but sometimes you have to be like, fuck it, dude. I'm going to be not 100% defensively sound if I'm running Kartana offense. Like, let's not try to make some shit happen. Ugh, I don't know. But, empo. Try to find his out and get his tornadoes in as often as possible, trying to make his push through. But presumably this is not recover. Most Alakazam nowadays, I should clarify, are because it allows them kind of do this loose check on a Heatran thing, you know. Absorb the Magma Storm, take a minimal amount from Earth Power, and recover up as it can, you know, swing its Focus Blast around. Or what have you, but I guess it's not as necessary with a Ghost Coin. Goodness gracious, Man, I thought I'd been sleeping pretty well, but I guess I've been fucking up. Sorry, fam squad. Yeah. It's weird that mounts, like, little plays like that are so bothersome to me. Like, why would you even bother? Is he really going to go to stay in there for another time when he needs this to be able to pivot into Clef and actually do shit to it? Like, no, just throw Ice Fang. You don't need to conserve Ice Fang PP, and even if he does stay in, whatever, it's still chipping at it. Man, just, ugh. But I'm sure at some point it's caught a guy trying to get like super aggressive for no good reason. Just weird to me. And that's fine. My issue, I guess, comes with the fact that in a position like this that feels a little tumultuous, if not leaning somewhat in Mount's favor, you shouldn't just be like, okay, cool, I'm stable right now, I should make the absolute super safe reactionary play. You should be considering the long-term implications of it, like, why would he sack Magnezone there? Absolutely no reason to sack Magnezone. He needs this Pokemon to be able to at least scare out the Clef, if not, you know, actually beat it in the long term. I'm not suggesting that this Clef will die to staying in on a Magnezone and, you know, doing that, but he needs to be able to punish that. He needs to be able to say, like, hey, this is my threat. You're obligated to switch out of it if you want to continue on as is. I know, man. Yeah. Man, it's taking his time to consider this. His Heatran, I believe, still has his leftovers, yes. So, alright, there he goes. And he finally misses a Hurricane. I believe this is his first miss, which is bonkers, but I guess, you know, well within the technical 70% odds. So, who to complain? Ugh. What I'm wondering is if Mouse is actually going to try for... Nope, okay, he's... That makes sense. That makes sense. That's smart. And Lava Plume Burn. This is, going to be toughest in its threat presented to the Alakazam. Because if it recovers, it can't just, click Earthquake, right? Earthquake and, keep it from recovering on it. And, of course, the added pressure, the inability to passively gain HP back off psychic sequences becomes much harder for him. And, funnily enough, I don't think this Torn can even U-turn here, because if it, okay. I'm just going to say if it does, countering right now actually kind of, fucks with him a little bit, which is kind of goofy, though I feel like Mount's the safest play in the grand scheme of things. Still is going to be some seismic toss. Yeah, I can't talk for the life of me. Gracious. We still haven't seen an item from this either, so the fact that it's not Life Orb, it's not Rocky, or not Leftovers, and not Z move, means that it can still be that the defensive Supersonic Sky Strike set. So, sorry, gotta respond to some shit. And really, that's kind of, at worst, keeping Torn honest and potentially picking off a Gliscor. But that's alright. Man, this is just a kind of weird one. I feel like this game could have very well been packed up quite some time ago, but they took this super safe route that I have to question. The Wisman, man. What the heck? I was not this tired some time ago. I am sorry, my friends. But with this amount of chip, unless there's some ATA spread that I'm not familiar with, which would be pretty interesting, honestly. I'm not going to totally dismiss that option, but I believe that your typical Z-Fly set is going to not be able to KO, so he's obligated out here. That obviously felt very Zamra, or not. Sorry, Sam's talking in this chat. Mr. Jambad. Kind of similar orientation of shit there. Esque. And that, wow. Interesting. Is that a momentumless Torn? What a fucking novelty. That's a goof. It's interesting. It's just, really weird. I feel like when you pick up a Torn, that's kind of the compression that I would not be okay with. Either you're sacrificing Taunt, you're sacrificing Defog, you gotta focus on letting Torn do one thing, and this is just it can probably do everything, and doesn't need to switch around for whatever. I don't know. It's iffy in my eyes. I know, right now. Oh, man. Not great. Seriously though, how funny would it be if it just decided to throw those counters out right now? I feel like that's kind of an option still, right? He doesn't need the HP that bad, and so it's twice as much for counter, right? That's still up. Off that 15% of 640. It's still like a solid 200 damage. That is well over what he would be getting out of an S-Toss there. Quick maths. I'm not doing the exact numbers because... really, you don't want me to do jack shit that requires a whole lot of thinking for this one. So, I don't know, man. I'm sorry. I feel like as tight as the first game was, this is a whole lot of just dicking around. Where was the just DD twice on that Gliscor? You made an aggressive play to get that, and now you're just like, whatever, fuck it, I don't care about. These sequences are ultimately coming to favor Mounts because he's, chipping away at this, that, third. But to what end? I must know. I guess this allows him to go Clef and get a Moonblast into the now Assault Vestless Magnezone, or rather he can, push that situation because nothing else really wants to switch in. Obviously, a now burned Gastron has no business switching around, and oh my gosh! Why? This is the same as the Earthquake thing. He has 22 Moonblast PP. He doesn't need to be counting at this stage in the game. He has shown Calm Mind. The threat of it's presented itself to us, the viewer, and him, the opponent. Stop. Okay, alright. What? Okay, that's... sure. I don't know, that's very weird. I feel like, it's cool that he did that, but it would have been just sharper for him to have, freaking Moonblasted the first time. Shaved off the, 15%, I'd say? Maybe a little more. I'd say it would be outside of the 2-hit KO range from that point, but still not good, and just feels silly to me. I am not sure if I agree with it, but this might be the game. I think it will, at this point, come down to Empo trying to commit to a Gyarados flinch. Or a crit here, more immediately, because, goodness, if you go through all that effort and you, of Calm Minding rather than just hitting the fucking Magnezone as it has to come in, you're just very intentionally wasting everyone's time, It's just a weird feel, man. I don't know. I don't fuck with this vision. You fucking did it? Why? What's the point of any of this, man? Jeez Louise. And I was just talking about, folks, how this clickers, this trendy vernacular has been kicking in, where they just, excuse losses and what have you to the idea of, this guy's just clicking buttons, the idea of, he just clicks buttons without considering the implications. I hate that because, I recognize that sometimes you can say that, but to be so dismissive of this, that, and the third just because you're someone else other than you made a risky play and it paid off, it just feels very, very baseless to me all of the time. But sometimes in situations like this, I feel it's validated almost because, you committed to this sequence, and it feels premeditated. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is a really, aggressive, if I make this mistake here, I lose, but I want it to look slick type of thing. No, this feels like, oh, I made this play in order to try to push through this, but there's this other play that did the same exact thing and did it better, but I didn't consider that. That feels like clicking to me. That's what I would identify as a clicker. And it feels very, very reminiscent of what's happening right now. Like, empo, I feel, should not be in this game for the way that it panned out. And yet here we are. It's just supremely bizarre. And he finally goes to the Glizzcore, which I'm maybe it's like fully physically defensive. I mean, it's possible, but most Glizzcore pack a lot for it. So I don't know. I'm not sure. I cannot say with certainty any one thing. But he does get out the Stealth Rock there, and he is, I'd imagine, given the rules of the last one, this should be still a roll, yes? Because the last one did 45, if I'm recalling correctly, so that must have been like some real min-max situation. If Mounts wants to play this, he can obviously go for it, and I believe that after this poison damage, he would die to Lava Plume, but yeah, he just decided to make the more conservative shot of it, and I mean, just gauging from how Empo's been playing, I'm kind of really expecting a double back to Torn, and would be kind of stoked to see another Lava Plume from Mounts. Yep. And he... Okay, yeah, no, that is actually a great snapshot of what I believe that other people are now identifying as the clicker mentality, but that's kind of the calculated risk I would have made, and I mean, it would have paid off. So again, I guess that's gonna be the theme of this episode, rather than the actual game itself, which is clearly more important. We're just gonna focus on this notion in the Tor community. And wow, tradesies. So they both get fed up with it. I think that favored Mounts, not only for the obvious of, he got a kill, he didn't, but even if Mounts was called on his shit, it would still be like, oh, he's going to what? Gastrodon that probably... Oh yeah, the Gastrodon that gets like shut down because it can get taunted on the Sky Strike or the Magnezone that he wants chip on in the first place. So I think that was a pretty stellar move from that. And honestly, looking at what has panned of this now, he doesn't fucking need this Torn. He can just fucking Hurricane again. What is Empo going to do to stop it? Like, he's going to get Hurricane for... Man, I want to say... Yeah, I want to say like 40-ish? 40 to 50? Might even be a roll to kill. The way that Torn EVs fluctuate nowadays is nuts to me. Oh, wow! I was not expecting Scarf Thingamajig. I guess that's kind of the point of it, the way he's been playing it, which is sharp. That is always cool, though unfortunately it did not result in anything, substantive. But I guess this means, well, what this would mean for me is a fucking free-ass... Glizzcore, maybe? Even Zam, honestly. I don't know if he'd be keeping Zam. I think he would be keeping Zam at this point. I'm questioning whether or not he has recovered at this point, as I've stated prior with the whole, Glizzcore can be the trans switch, Zam can be the trans switch, etc., etc. And if he doesn't have it, then that's probably fine. Otherwise, I would, yes. So, cool. What was that? I guess it's fine, too. I'm being, overly nitpicky there, I feel. Because, of course, I was talking about how taking that damage on the zone is positive for his presumed end game of Clef. So that should be fine, really. And I'm just being like a little bitch about it, so you'll have to excuse me. But sometimes when you get in these situations where it's just like, this is a very, passive back and forth, there isn't really a whole lot of, what I would deem active long-term planning into, each individual tiny thing. You have to let your mind wander sometimes, and you're just like, oh, dude, it would be so cool if he fucking went to Zam here and he traced the fucking, because Landorus would be switching out first, so he would fucking trace the, magnet pull and be able to pop it off there and be like, dang, dude, that would get the Smog Torch chat hype, that's all I'm saying. But, ooh, okay, so this is, oh, what? Oh, okay, alright, I guess that's fine. I would not have expected, mounts to SD there. I would have, I think, much rather gone with the, I don't know, that's a tough one, because I saw it as Empo trying to force a situation where it was Gliscor on Gyarados while forcing that, so that was like the smart play, and obviously he was being smart about being conservative with it. And now, we're getting to that situation where we could have been at, like, alright, so remember, like, 50 turns ago where Empo set it up where he could have had this on this, but instead Gyarados would be, like, at +1/+1 already, and actually be able to S or DD again, and then 2 at KO. Yeah, so now we're there, except without the first DD, because... Oh, wow! Nice, dude! Okay, wow. Cut fucking everything I said. That's awesome. So, jeez Louise. Alright, way to bring back my attention at the end of it. Thank you for that, guys. So I think that there was at least something to digest in the second game, while the first one was obviously much more immediately, tight and whatnot. I would say that this was a really nice one to spectate. I think it was worth my time, and hopefully my narration wasn't too, fucking out of touch and old man for you. Hopefully I can deliver something more like that in the near future. Appreciate your time. Catch you on the flip side. Deuces.